You know the feeling. The one that creeps in after a conversation, a phone call, a casual encounter. That heaviness in your chest, the sudden exhaustion in your bones, the sense that a piece of you has been stolen. You might call it stress, you might call it bad vibes. But Carl Jung called it something far deeper, the drain of psychic energy. He warned us that some people, consciously or unconsciously, feed on the vitality of others. They walk among us, hidden behind smiles, friendly words, even love. They are the emotional vampires. They thrive on your attention, your compassion, your energy, and they leave you hollowed out, wondering why you feel so empty. Today, we're going to expose them. We'll unravel the darkness that Jung saw in humanity, the shadow that some people never confront, the hunger they hide behind politeness. Because to survive in a world like this, you must learn to recognize them. You must learn to protect yourself. You must learn to guard the most precious thing you own, your energy. By the end of this video, you'll understand how to spot an emotional vampire and how to shield yourself from their hunger. This is not for the faint of heart. This is the truth most people refuse to see. Let's begin. Carl Jung believed that every human being carries a shadow, the dark, unacknowledged parts of themselves they'd rather deny. But not everyone takes the time to face that darkness. Some people bury it so deep that it starts to live on its own in the corners of their mind, feeding on the energy of others. These are the emotional vampires. They are the ones who never take responsibility for their own pain. They project it onto everyone around them. They thrive on your sympathy, your guilt, your kindness. They hook into your energy like a parasite, draining you of your life force. Jung didn't call them vampires, but he described them perfectly. He warned that people who refuse to integrate their shadow become dangerous, not because they're evil, but because they're unconscious. They become puppets of their own darkness. They don't know who they are, and so they steal from others to feel whole. This is the first truth you must understand. An emotional vampire is not always malicious. They are simply lost, and in their desperation, they'll take whatever light they can find. To understand an emotional vampire, you must first understand the shadow. Jung taught that the shadow is the part of ourselves that we refuse to acknowledge. Our anger, our jealousy, our fear, our insecurities. Most people run from their shadow. They hide it behind smiles. They drown it in distractions. They pretend it doesn't exist. But here's the dark truth. Whatever you refuse to face will find a way to leak out. And for some, that means turning to others, to carry their pain. They project their darkness onto you. They use you as a dumping ground for everything they can't handle in themselves. They complain endlessly. They make every problem your problem. They demand your time, your energy, your sympathy, until you're too tired to fight back. Jung warned that the unacknowledged shadow becomes a thief of energy. It takes what it cannot create on its own. It feeds on the light of others. And that's the second truth you must understand. Emotional vampires are people who refuse to face their own darkness, so they make it your burden. Emotional vampires rarely come at you with fangs. They come with stories, with tears, with subtle manipulations that are harder to spot. Jung saw this as projection, the mind's way of avoiding its own darkness. By blaming others, they'll guilt trip you, make you feel like the only one who can save them. They'll tell you you're special, that no one else understands them like you do. They'll build a prison out of your compassion and call it love. Jung warned that these people live in a constant state of need because they never integrated their own strength. They've never faced their own darkness, so they feed on yours. Here's what to watch for. Do you feel exhausted after being with them? Do they always have a new crisis, a new drama that demands your attention? Do they refuse to take responsibility for their own mistakes? Do they make you feel guilty for wanting boundaries? If you answered yes, you might have an emotional vampire in your life. Imagine waking up every morning with a clear sense of purpose, your goals, your dreams, your vision. But then, like clockwork, they arrive. They bring their problems, their endless needs, their guilt trips, and their chaos. Every time you give them your attention, your time, your energy, you drain a little of your own willpower. Jung warned that people who haven't integrated their shadow lack a center. They don't have their own internal compass, so they cling to yours. They mimic your strength. Because they can't find their own, they make you the solution. To problems they refuse to solve themselves. Slowly, your energy, once focused on your own path, gets diverted. Your dreams start to fade. Your purpose begins to blur. Your life becomes a series of reactions to someone else's chaos. That's the price of letting an emotional vampire into your life. You become a character in their story, instead of the hero of your own. Jung had a name for what happens when someone feeds off the energy of others, psychic inflation. It's when a person, too weak to face their own darkness, inflates themselves with your strength. They take your confidence, your focus, your light, and make it their own. They become larger than life in their own mind. They dominate conversations. They make every crisis about them. They twist your words, your empathy, into weapons against you. Jung warned that psychic inflation is dangerous for both the vampire and the victim. For the vampire, it's a false sense of power, a mask that hides the emptiness within. But for you, it's the slow death of your own boundaries, the erosion of your identity, the weakening of your will. Every time you let them in, you give them a piece of yourself. And one day, you look in the mirror and wonder who you are. It's natural to feel empathy, to want to help those in pain. But Schopenhauer, the philosopher of pessimism, warned us about compassion's dark side. He wrote, "Compassion is the basis of morality, but it can be a trap that leads to your own undoing." Emotional vampires use your compassion against you. They weaponize your empathy. They make you feel guilty for having boundaries. They convince you that your happiness is selfish. They twist your kindness into chains. Jung saw this too. He warned that the shadow feeds on guilt, on the belief that you must always be there for others, that their pain is your responsibility. But here's the truth. You can't save someone who refuses to face themselves. You can't heal someone who refuses to see their own wounds. And you can't sacrifice your own light to keep someone else warm. Emotional vampires don't wear capes. They blend in, they smile, they pretend to care. But if you look closely, you'll see the signs. They're the ones who always have a new drama, a new crisis that demands your attention. They're the ones who always find a way to turn the conversation back to themselves, their pain, their struggles, their needs. They'll compliment you, but only to get something from you. They'll flatter you, but only to disarm you. They'll cry in your arms, then stab you in the back. Jung taught that the shadow loves to hide, that the most dangerous people are often the ones who seem the most harmless. Watch for the patterns. Do they drain you every time you talk? Do you feel anxious, tired, or uneasy after being with them? Do they guilt trip you for wanting time for yourself? Do they always make you responsible for their happiness? If the answer is yes, you're dealing with an emotional vampire. Jung taught that to become whole, you must learn to set boundaries, not just physically, but psychically, because your energy is your lifeblood. Without it, you can't build, you can't create, you can't live. Emotional vampires hate boundaries. They see them as rejection, as a threat to their power over you. But boundaries are your shield. They're the line that says, "This is where you end and I begin." They protect you from being a dumping ground for other people's problems. They keep your mind clear, your purpose sharp. They allow you to be compassionate without being consumed. Jung wrote, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." You can't become yourself if you're always carrying someone else's darkness. Jung believed that individuation, becoming whole, meant facing your own shadow and refusing to carry the shadows of others. He taught that every person is responsible for their own darkness, their own wounds. When you let emotional vampires drain you, You're doing their work for them. You're enabling their avoidance. You're feeding their illusions. Here's how to reclaim your energy. Acknowledge your own shadow, so theirs can't hook into you. Say no without guilt. Prioritize your purpose over their chaos. Recognize that you can't fix them, only they can. Because in the end, your energy is yours. Your life is yours, and only you can decide who gets access. Recognizing emotional vampires is just the beginning. Protecting yourself from them, that's where the real work begins. Jung taught that the most powerful defense is self-awareness. Because when you know your own darkness, you can't be manipulated by someone else's. Here are some advanced tactics to protect your energy. Ground yourself. Every morning, before you step into the world, remind yourself who you are. Center your mind on your purpose, your goals, your vision. Because a man who knows himself can't be easily shaken. Use silence as a shield. Emotional vampires thrive on reactions. They feed on your attention. But when you refuse to react, you starve them of their power. Jung believed that silence is where the unconscious speaks loudest. Let them talk. Let them flail. Stay silent. Mirror their projections. When they try to guilt trip you, ask them to explain themselves. When they complain, ask them what they're going to do about it. Make them face their own shadow. Because the moment you refuse to play their game, the spell is broken. Schopenhauer, the master of pessimism, warned that pity is the most dangerous trap, because pity opens the door for emotional vampires to invade your mind. He wrote, "Compassion with others' misfortunes is a noble quality, but it is easily turned into a weapon against you." Emotional vampires know this. They play on your sympathy. They use tears as bait. They make you feel guilty for wanting to protect yourself. But here's the dark truth. Your energy is limited. Your time is finite. Every minute you spend on someone who refuses to help themselves is a minute stolen from your own life. Pity without discernment is self-destruction. Jung believed that true strength comes from individuation, the process of becoming whole within yourself. A man who knows his own shadow can't be manipulated by someone else's. A man who knows his purpose can't be distracted by someone else's drama. Emotional vampires thrive on weakness, on uncertainty, on self-doubt. But when you build an unshakable sense of self, you become a fortress. You become a force of nature. You become untouchable. Because in a world of illusions, your truth is your power. Your energy is your kingdom. And only you decide who gets in. Clarity is the ultimate weapon against emotional vampires. Because in a world where everyone is projecting their darkness, a man who sees clearly becomes unstoppable. Jung taught that clarity comes from integration, the courage to face your own shadow so no one else can use it against you. Most people live in illusions. They believe that everyone is as honest, as kind, as open-hearted as they are. But Schopenhauer and Jung both warned, human nature is rarely so pure. When you see the darkness in others, you're not being negative. You're being realistic. You're protecting your energy. Because once you know the game, you can choose how to play. We live in a world of constant distractions. Social media, notifications, entertainment. But behind every screen, every feed, every comment, there's a potential vampire. Someone who wants your energy, your attention, your mind. They might not even know they're doing it. But every time you give in, you give away a piece of yourself. Jung warned that the unconscious is always at work, and that most people are puppets of their own shadows. That's why now, more than ever, you must be vigilant. You must protect your energy. You must reclaim your power, because if you don't, someone else will take it. Carl Jung didn't want you to hate others. He wanted you to understand them, to see the darkness that lives in every soul, including your own, because only then can you navigate the world without losing yourself. Emotional vampires can't drain a man who knows his own strength, who's faced his own demons, who's built his own kingdom. So ask yourself, where is your energy going? Who is feeding on your light? And what are you going to do about it? Because in the end, your life is yours to protect, your mind is yours to master, and your energy is yours to guard. If this video opened your eyes, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Drop a comment below. When did you realize someone was draining your energy? Because this conversation doesn't end here. It only deepens. Like, share, and subscribe. Because your journey to freedom is just beginning. And the next video, that's where we take it even deeper.